All right, good day, listeners. Welcome back to another podcast of the For the Gambia Show. I'm your host, Thomas, together with Pasering. And today we're taking a different dimension. Gambia has changed. New Gambia for 22 years, and now the way forward, a new government. Everything has changed. What we aspired for has finally been put to the test, and we have a new government led by Adam Barrow with the coalition. Today we have Gambians amongst us to talk about the way forward and what is happening right now in the Gambia. To my right is our sister, a lady in Raleigh here at the Ceesay. And I have Pasering, we have Coach Pasamba Jow visiting us, and we have the president of the North Carolina Gambia Association, Mr. Omar, and also Makam Sowe of Raleigh, North Carolina. Gentlemen and lady, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, I'll just start. We'll just go cut through the chairs and start with Makam. Gambia has decided after 22 years. What's your take so far?
Well, thank you, Mr. Thomas, for inviting us and passing. Thank you, Coach Pasamba Jow, coming from DC.
The nation's capital.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Ida Ceesay. Thank you, Mr. Omar. Well, yeah, I mean, Gambia has finally decided, after 22 years of dictatorship, as you rightly put it. It was a tough 22 years with a lot of injustices being done against the citizens of the Gambia. A brutal dictator who destroyed the economy, destroyed the infrastructure. Pretty much, it was a tough country to live in. He exiled, the best and the brightest that country has ever, seen. And so on December 1st, an election was held. Adam Barrow became victorious. For the first time in the history of the world, we've seen an entrenched dictator being taken out through an election. It was a miraculous process, and Gambians are really grateful and appreciate the fact that change has happened. Mm-hmm. And now, since Adam Barrow was sworn in on January 19, he's also taken the helm. At least right now, it is safe to say that there is no injustice going on. People are not being arrested without the due process, which is something that we've been yearning for, something we've been, campaigning for the past 22 years. All these people I have here, especially Coach Pasamba Jow and Omar, we've been, all over the country pretty much protesting. If Yaya Jammeh, came here, we've done everything we could to make sure that this change happened. So it's a lot of challenges he's facing right now because of he inherited pretty much a bad economy. I mean, a terrible economy. The treasury was pretty much empty. So it's a lot of things that, it's a lot of challenges, as a matter of fact, that he is facing. And we will see, how they're going about it. But for now, we only thing we can say is, at least freedom, and people can speak their mind. People, at least, things that we didn't see in the last 22 years. At least for that, we have that. With the economic and the infrastructural aspect, I believe that one, we will give it more time to judge it. At this moment, I don't think it would be, fair on my part, to say anything on that, good or bad, because because from what he inherited, from the former regime.
Coming to Coach Pasamba Jow, if you have to give a grade to the present government right now, which is almost close to 4 months, where would you put the minus and the plus at with this government so far?
Well, I think, thank you very much for having me, and I'm really honored to join this panel with these patriotic Gambians. The minus, I think, would be in terms of communication. I think that is where they are lacking. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I said that is after 22 years of dictatorship and inheriting a country that is pretty much destroyed, it is important for the government to communicate fully with the citizens so that they would understand what is at stake. Barrow was swept into power with a lot of euphoria. That euphoria brought in a lot of expectations from the people. But unless that expectation is managed, then you'll have a citizenry that will be very jittery. That is what is happening now. So where I think they are really found wanting is their lack of clearly communicating to the Gambian people to understand what is at stake, what they have inherited, the work that it would take to solve that problem. If I were in the Barrow administration, I would dial back to the 80s when Jawara came with the slogan Tesito. I think Tesito is more apt now than it was ever before. But unless that is brought to the core, to the minds of the people to understand that this is not a piece of cake. We are not here to solve a 22-year problem. In fact, we are not here to solve a 52-year problem. Gambia had been underdeveloping for 52 years. So, but unless we understand what is at stake, unless the citizens understand that this is not easy, unless we all understand that we have a role to play in solving this problem, what is going to happen is what you see now, where all of a sudden people are now talking about, Kurang bi problem la, forgetting that we have had this Kurang problem for a very long time. And what I also think would be Barrow's biggest problem is these promises that he is making. In 6 months, we will stabilize the electricity problem, something that has been a problem since 1974. Okay, in 2 years, it will never be a problem again. That is a big challenge, and I have not seen anything that is done practically that can make that a reality. So I believe that communication is the key problem. Where I would give them a big plus is that they are listening, because every time a criticism emerges about any issue, you would see them take a back seat and say, you know what, maybe we do not have to do it this way. And we've seen in some instances where Minister of Justice, for example, would come and apologize to the Gambian people and say, you know what, we were wrong to do this. That has never happened in our politics for 52 years. So my plus is that, my minus is the communication.
So basically what you're saying is like most will say, especially if you listen to social media, most will say they were prepared for Jammeh to leave, but they were not prepared for post-Jammeh what to do. There is no blueprint of what to do. So they need to come up with more of a specific thing of what the government needs to do. But we'll get back to that. We'll go to our lady guest here. It's Ida. The Gambia has changed and has decided. That's the slogan. You have to give credit to the former regime. At least they gave women high positions. Like we had a vice president, the longest serving vice president. Now we also have the present government. There's a whole lot of women in his cabinet. Sure. What would you like to see Gambian women, whether it's the diaspora or back home, to participate more in this political process?
At this point in time, I think I would just like to say thank you to everybody for having me. I guess I'm a little outnumbered here, but I think I can hold my own today. I think what I would really like them to see is to focus on things that really affect women. Education is one of them, and healthcare is another one.
Right.
It's all well and dandy to have all these plans and economic things that you want to do. However, the basic needs of women are not being met. And I think that's where we're lacking a little bit. Our education system is not what it's supposed to be. Healthcare is absolutely not where it's supposed to be. So I think just sitting back and figuring out what we need to do to enhance education and women's affairs and healthcare, I think that would be a very good beginning at this point, because you can't have a nation that is willing to work but is not healthy enough to work. So I think that would be one of our main focuses.
Yeah, most definitely. Mr. An, I'll come to you here. A few months ago, we had Mr. Nyangjai here, and we asked him, what was it that, how did Yahya Jammeh change? And he was like, it's the people who created Yahya Jammeh. What is it that we can do not to create another Yahya Jammeh again?
Well, thank you for sharing. I'm happy to be here with my fellow strugglers, if I can say that. The struggle continues, of course.
Yes.
The struggle continues. I'm really humbled to be here. And I welcome Coach to this great state of North Carolina.
The best state in the South.
That's right.
And I'm really humbled to be with Makam, Thomas, Ida, and of course, Pasering. I mean, I think that's a very important question, as to not how Yahya Jammeh came about, and how to avoid the mistake going forward. I think what is important is, I think they really have to focus on institutions. The institutions, have to be built, from the ground up, or at least if we have institutions there that are running not to our expectations, but to what we need to do is to strengthen, or what they need to do is to strengthen those institutions. There are institutions like the police, for example. Law is very important. I mean, you cannot govern when you don't have the law. And enforcement of the law is very important if you are to achieve your, governance priorities. Of course, like Ida said, there are priority areas. But what you need to do is to go back before you can govern. I think law is very important as a foundation to have that build confidence into the system, where people would have confidence into the judicial system and say, well, if I'm wronged or if I wrong somebody, if we go through the courts, I have
fair trial.
I have a fair trial. If you build that confidence into the system where people believe in that, then you can govern. But I think the key is how do you, come up with strong institutions bigger than individuals. Mm-hmm. Because for the most part, all our politics, the 50-year history, most of the power was vested on individuals. Jawara probably was even bigger than the state, which shouldn't be the case. At least there should be an institution. I mean, even this government, even though they came not, few months ago, you have to give them credit. At least a little bit of that is beginning to happen. Mm-hmm. Where you have the Justice Department, you have the Attorney General or the Justice Minister would come and, say something without even talking to the President, talk to the media. Before that wasn't the case. And I think a little bit of push would bring that up to our expectations. But I think strengthening institutions, make them bigger than the state, and you have to push for people to believe in those institutions.
Absolutely.
Makam, do you think Gambia is ready for the next step?
I think so. I mean, it's a lot of reforms that are going to happen. I mean, I believe in the next, during this, parliamentary lifetime, especially, changing the, the constitution to, to a two-term limit, whether it's going to be 4 years or 5 years. Changing the upper age limit. It's a lot of reforms that needs to be done. And I think if those reforms are done, we will be in the right direction. But until those reforms are done, we still have to, keep pushing, because those are very important. And one of the, most important thing is, if you have a two-term limit, a president feels like that I am here only for a 1 term or 2 terms and I'm out, that will really push the country. And it will make the person work harder, believing that I have only a limited time, and then if I have done anything wrong, something will happen to me when I leave. So those are very important steps that need to be taken. But I have no doubt in my mind. If the transition is managed right, and I believe it will be managed right, we have a lot, the hopes and aspirations of the Gambian people will be realized. And but as Omar said, we have to keep pushing, we the citizens, and allow this, this one-man control of everything, especially under Yaya Jammeh. I believe Jawara was, it was not a very democratic society like we have in the West, but at least Jawara was not in total control of everything. This past regime we had, Yaya Jammeh, was in total control of every aspect of life. The ministers couldn't do their job, the directors, the permanent secretaries, the ambassadors, nobody could do their job because you are afraid of making a mistake. And then what happened is you are sent to mile 2. So, nobody could have done the job. It was only one man doing the job. And you see how it ended for him? Bad. Now he's living in exile. So, it's a lesson. And I believe that this government, they're going to learn a lot of lesson, from the past. And I'm sure they wouldn't want to repeat it because they know the consequences of running a bad government. The people going to rise up against you, and consequently, you're going to be voted out. And operating with impunity is not going to happen in the country anymore. So all that should give us hope. I think Gambia is ready for that.
All right, I'll get back to Mr. Coach Pasamba Jow. We in the process of having the Truth and Reconciliation Committee set up. What would be the first thing that you would like to see happen when that is in place?
Well, I want to say something before I come to that. I hear Gambia has decided. I believe that Gambia decided a long time ago against dictatorship. That decision was affirmed on the 1st of December.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Gambia had decided for a very long time that we want nothing to do with dictatorship. And that was why thousands of Gambians lived in exile. And thousands of Gambians went to jail. Thousands of Gambians were against this regime. Now, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is a very important thing. But we have to be very careful when we go about it. You cannot have reconciliation without justice. Dr. King had said that true peace is not merely the absence of tension, it is the presence of justice. So meaning you cannot just go and say, okay, you know what, it's fine. Or do affaire yi xamante ne ñay waxalante. Or, you know, I know Makam, hamna papa man this thing, so let's let it go. No. People must pay for the prices that they have committed. And I'm confident that what the Justice Department is trying to do is to make sure that people will be prosecuted who've committed heinous crimes, as we've seen going on with the NIA 9, who killed Solo Sendeng, or who are accused of killing Solo Sendeng. That must happen. But one thing that I also want us to be very mindful of, not only the government, but the citizens, is that if you look at South Africa, they had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. After 20 years of its existence, there are over 300 cases that were referred for prosecution that were never prosecuted. So meaning those people who committed those crimes are walking the streets of South Africa with impunity. So we have to go it one way. First of all, the victims must be compensated. But people like Yaya Jammeh, for everything that he has done, you cannot reconcile Yaya Jammeh's atrocities.
No.
So there must be a balancing act. But what Gambians also must understand is in jurisprudence, or when you're prosecuting people, sometimes you would have to take the good and the bad to be able to achieve your goal. Now, Coach might not have killed somebody, but he was an accomplice to that killing. But you need Coach's cooperation to be able to get to Yaya Jammeh who killed the person. So sometimes this is where you have a plea deal with the person and said, you know what, you come and honestly testify against this guy about everything that you know, and you will be charged a lesser crime. You will not be charged like, you know, an accomplice to murder, but something else that will not, you know, send you to jail, or send you to, if it sends you to jail, you will not be there for too long, because those things would happen. So, but you see, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission too is very important. But I think again it comes back to communication. Gambians are in for a very, very rough ride about the atrocities that Jammeh have committed and his regime, the atrocities that they have committed. So this is going to come to open court, in open forums. We hear about how Masa Jammeh was murdered, where a rope was tied around her neck. One was pulling one from one end, the other pulling from the other end, until her throat, you know, was just busted and she died. All these things are going to come in open. So are we ready to help the Gambian people to deal with this trauma that is caused by Yaya Jammeh after 22 years? That is another thing. You would hear somebody come and tell you, you know what, like Siga Jahi's brother, who was shot April 10, 11. Tell you how they had just thrown him in a room so that he could die, bleeding. And his only luck was his uncle came to the room, who came to help and saw him and say, you know what, that's my nephew. So these are things that people will have to come face to face with. We've always heard about Jammeh's crimes, but we've never had the opportunity of hearing them through proper channels where they are played out in the open. So I think the TRC is great, but let's also be ready to counsel the people so that they'll be able to deal with it.
With the selection of the committees of these members, that there's a tactical team right now going on. Who would you like to see in these kind of committees?
Me, I don't. All I want is somebody who is fair and open-minded. I've had people argue that, well,
should victims be there?
Well, there is
I
no
don't think
Gambian
so.
who is not a victim of Yahya Jammeh. Desmond Tutu was the chair of the TRC in South Africa.
Right.
He was a victim of apartheid in
Apartheid,
South
yeah.
Africa. And I think that there is no Gambian that is not a victim of Yahya Jammeh
Directly or indirectly.
indirectly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what is important is to find people of integrity, people who are honest, people who are out not to revenge, but to make sure that justice is not only done but seen to be done. To me, I think that is enough for me. But what is important is for all the citizens to be engaged in the process, to make sure that if Omar An is there, Omar An is going to do the right thing that he's supposed to do. But if you leave it in the hands of people, you could not be a victim and they put you there. But guess what? You might know Pasiri who committed crimes and want to go the other way. So it's not that easy. But again, I think if we remain engaged, we will be able to achieve it.
What's your take on that, Ida?
I totally agree with Coach. I do think that we need somebody who's fair, and we need somebody who's at least open to hear all sides. You're absolutely right. There's not a Gambian that I know who is not a victim of his crimes. However, we need somebody who can keep an open mind and also be able to give the people what they want. Not because I know Omar An's dad or I know Coach's mom, but be the force behind justice and do what's supposed to be done. However, you also did say that we also need to be able to support Gambians, because this is going to come out in the open and half of us don't know this. We're lucky enough to be here and we see it, but there are other people who don't know these atrocities at all. And so there's going to be some form of coaching and also people
Counseling.
there exactly that are going to be there to help. And again, goes back to my healthcare thing where we need people there to help these people, because you're going to see a lot of people get affected, and especially the children of these victims that don't have their dad. They never really mourned their loved ones.
Yeah.
And so we need to help and support them. Some of them, in our society, we're not open to mental health issues, or we're not open to dealing with things that come from trauma. And so we need to be able to have a support system for these people and work for them and only for them, to support them through these things. And, again, you can't have a mom sit in court and hear the things that were done to their child and they just go home and be okay.
No.
They're not going to be okay. And so we need to have, like you said, the fairness, but also we need to have a support system for these victims.
What are some of the social reforms that you think they can make back home?
Social reforms will come when you have inclusivity. I think a lot of us here have ideas, and all of us have, things that we want seen. But there are also people in Gambia who are very capable of these things. They're very educated people, and we have, like Omar said, we need these institutions. However, social change is going to come through inclusivity. People don't feel like they were included. Whether it was, if you were in Yahya Jammeh's clique, you were in Yahya Jammeh's clique. Some people say when you were in Jawara's clique, you were in Jawara's clique. However, we have a lot of educated people who need to be included in decision making and be given a fair chance also to be included. Just because I am, Ida or Pulla or Sosela or Sererla does not give me the right to be in there. I have to be judged based on, what I have to offer and what I can do to affect change, not just by who I know.
That's right.
Can I add to that about the inclusivity? These sometimes, what I also believe, I agree with you, but I also sometimes have a problem with when we wait to be called to action.
Yeah.
The Gambia belongs to all of us. Yeah. And this is a government that is supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. So if you look at it that way, it is the government of us. We've just entrusted some people to do the work. So I believe that we must first fight to make sure that our voices are heard. Because I listen to a lot of programs now in the Gambia, radio programs, and I love listening to them. I hear voices of reason in that country, people who have ideas. And I believe that if Barrow is sitting, decides today, you know what, I'm just going to eat my ganar and just listen to the podcast, and hears Omar An's views on governance, he may not have to call Omar An and say, you know what, come and run that. But the ideas that Omar An would espouse may be strong enough for him to say, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe this is something that we have to look into. So what I just want to appeal to Gambians, that in as much as we want to be included, fekk ñu ci boole. This is ours.
Yes.
I'm not waiting for anybody. ñu toog a añ bi fi ñun ñëpp ñu joxe dépense ma toog kuma xam ne kaay ñu lekka déet suñ tegee bool bi su ma lekka bi dafa duga. And that's how it should be. Let's speak. Let's reach out. Let's write to the editors. That's what they do here. In the United States here, the George Wills of the world. And all these opinion makers.
Absolutely.
They don't have to talk to the president. But when they write an op-ed page, op-ed article, everybody reads it, including the president. And it becomes an issue that would warrant somebody to listen to because it makes sense. So what I want to encourage people is use the pages of Standard, use the pages of the Observer, use the pages of Foray, use the pages of the Point, use any page that you can have. Call the Freedoms, call the Fatu Radios, use the podcast, do everything that you have to do. Eventually, your voice will reach the top.
Absolutely.
And it might, in fact, inspire somebody who was not interested and say, you know what, I'm going to take this up. Somebody takes it up. Before you know it, it will be the voice that would carry the day. And that's what I want us all to do as Gambians and not just leave it in the hands of people and say, you know what, or they will do it. We'll feel.
Mr. An, we just saw the elections, the MP elections. What do you think should be the role of these MPs in terms of, us moving forward as a nation? Because the average Gambian doesn't know what these MPs do, but it's a very important branch of government. What do you think should be their role in this new Gambia?
Yeah, good question. But I think before I answer that, you can tell Coach has been protesting since he was one. He's a lifelong activist. But that's a very important question there. I think the role of the MP primarily is to stick to the guidelines in terms of law. I think that's fundamental. Before you even begin to understand the needs of your constituency, you were sent to the House from your constituency. For you to be successful, you first and foremost, you have to understand what the law of the land is. Because now you are a lawmaker. You can write laws, you can pass bills, you can say yes or no. And there are consequences to that, as far as you voting yes or no. So knowing the laws of the land, primarily, you have to have the country's interests first before your constituency. And that what the preparation of that comes through you understanding what the law of the land is. Because if you don't know what the laws are, you're just passing laws based on convenience, and it could be damaging, in the long term. But I think for you to be successful as a lawmaker, you have to understand what the needs of your constituents are. That's what you take to the House, and you tally. Okay, this is my constituents' interest. How does it align with the country's interest? And that's how you become successful. But it is very, very important to know the laws of the land and what, the kind of position now you hold. Because it's an esteemed position to be a lawmaker.
Absolutely.
Because people may die. You can vote for people to get killed. You can vote for people to get out of prison. When it comes to the budget, all aspects of governance goes through the House in terms of law. So it is critical for you to understand what the laws are. And I think there should be a program, maybe like I'm sure there's an orientation program within the House. I'm not sure of that.
They don't,
but I think they should have one that is very, very rigorous to, put members through the program for them to understand what the undertaking is.
One thing that I want each and every one of us to touch on, I will start with Makam, is the issue of tribalism that is happening. And social media was dominated a few weeks ago about that. Gambia is like a bubble, a small bubble. And we've seen how it has affected even the former regime, talking about a specific tribe. Now that you see people making videos using obscene languages. And I think that's a culture that we need to change. We need to educate ourselves more. The Gambian will disagree with you to a point as long as you have the same points of views. The moment you disagree on one point that he or she doesn't agree with, they turn it into something personal or insults. I mean, we have very smart ideas. But when it comes to the issue of Andomayo Silirek, Saga Moinyo, Yo Linga. So, what is our role as Gambians to make sure that we don't let these things go past where it is right now? Because we've seen how it has affected Rwanda, Kenya, the list goes on and on. And Gambia is too small. So, what can we do collectively?
It's a very interesting question. And, we've been going through this, as you said, for a while. But here's my take. I don't believe that there is any single Gambian, being a Mandinka, being a Wolof, being a Pular, being a Serer, who gets up every morning and say that the other tribe is my enemy, or they are trying to put me down. I don't believe it's there. What I do believe, though, is that there are extremists on both sides. There are extremists in the Fula community. There are extremists in the Mandinka community. There are extremists in the Wolof community. It is there. That it is all, and that extremism is not based on hatred of the other one. It's all based on power. Who should be in charge? That's my belief. I believe it is all about, we should be in charge. That group shouldn't be in charge. Because if you look at Gambia very well, when it comes to marriages, there are no issues between Wolofs, Mandinkas, and Fulas.
Right.
When it comes to social activists, there is no problem between Wolofs, Mandinkas, Wolofs, and Fulas. It's not there. We always come together, work together, do everything together. Our only problem about tribalism is when it comes to dispress power, government. That's where we have our problem. I also believe that there is a pull and push between what should be the lingua franca of the Gambia. English is the official language,
right?
But I also believe there is a pull and push between what should be the lingua franca. Is it Wolof or is it Mandinka? Yeah, it is there,
right?
So that can also create some sort of friction, but it is not it doesn't reach a level of violence or hatred. No, but the problem is always comes when it comes. The problem of tribalism is always, it surfaces only when it comes to power in the Gambia, not on the social aspect, not on the economic aspect, because we don't see Wolof saying, "Oh, I'm not going to gender sikini because of kipola or kisosela." You don't see that. You don't. The only time this tribalism surfaces, as far as I can tell, is when it comes to power. And what we need to understand as Gambians is that it doesn't matter who is in charge, who is the president, okay? Because Adama Barrow will never, or the National Assembly will never execute laws and say these laws are for Fulas only or for Mandinkas only. It's not going to happen. The national cake, if there is a road that is built, it is built for everybody.
Absolutely.
If there is a hospital, if it is built, it's built for everybody. That's what we should ask our government. That's what we should look up to our government. Who is going to build a hospital? Who is going to build a school? Who is going to build a road? Who is going to build the infrastructure? I think that's what we need. Because it is irrelevant whether, a Mandinka is a president, or a Fula is a president, or Jola is a president. It is irrelevant.
I concur with that, but there's also what is called nepotism. It is there.
Yes.
We wouldn't disagree on that.
Right.
And I believe, especially with this present government, I've said it before when they took over, that they shouldn't base their appointments on nepotism or people who have supported them because I paid for your T-shirts when you campaign, or I was there on vacation and I gave you $50,000. Right. It should be based on merit.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yes.
But that is happening. So this all circles back to tribalism. So, Coach, what's your take on that?
Well, I don't believe. One thing that we have to establish: there is no tribal purity in the Gambia. There is nobody who is a pure Mandinka.
Exactly.
There is nobody who is a pure Wolof. Because even if you call yourself a pure Mandinka,
We interrelate.
by extension, like in my family, my brother that died was married to a Makai. My younger sister just married a Mandinka. My other sister Aji is married to a Fula. The list goes on. So all these people, they have kids. My nieces and nephews were related to me. I have a daughter whose mom, the mother of the daughter, the grandmother on that side, was Jola, the father was Fuller.
Mhm.
That's my daughter. I have a daughter, well, African American here, and all that stuff. So, where is the purity? There's no tribal purity. I agree with Makam that power sometimes is what is used. People, when they are looking for power, they would sometimes use any means to get there. I've had Halifa Sallah answer this question very interestingly. That if you are sick and go to the hospital, and you are a Mandinka or a Wolof, you're not going there asking for a Wolof doctor or a Mandinka doctor. You just want to be taken care of.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Right? When they collect our taxes, they don't separate it by tribes. Oh, this is what we collected from the Wolof. This is what it's the collective resources of everybody. If the resources are mismanaged, everybody's resources will be mismanaged. So what is lacking in our country is the political education and political awareness. And that would come to what Omar had said. Unless we institutionalize our country, we will have a problem. Because when the presidency becomes more important than the person who occupies the position, then tribe would be a thing of the past.
Yeah.
And when it comes to nepotism, I'm always very careful. I don't like to accuse people of appointing people because of their particular tribe. And I did a video just after the inauguration of Barrow, the first inauguration in Senegal, in which I claimed I was not interested in any position, and I'm not. And I also warned that positions must not be given based on what somebody has done
Absolutely.
for the struggle,
I agree.
but the merit
Exactly.
of the person.
Exactly.
But we must not also be very reckless in seeing every appointment through the lenses of tribe.
We shouldn't.
Oh, kii soose la, kii njaago la, kii lisi. Lan la tax all of you dugaaguñ. That's a problem.
It is.
To me, what is important is anybody who is there and is qualified to be in that position. My duty and responsibility as a citizen is to make sure that that person does the job that he or she is entrusted to do, period. Because if you do your job, even if you are appointed maybe, Thomas, my friend, la jox naa ko position. But if Thomas does the work that is expected of him, every single Gambian benefits.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Usainu Dabo is a Mandinka who is married to Mayandur Sierra, and the other wife, Buffet, who is like Malatar, and Okanyam Mayuma Jalo Sinkonyon, so Fula, and everybody mixed up. So how is Usainu a tribalist? Look at Barrow, President Barrow. Father Mandinka, mom Fula, wife Fula, raised by a Sarahule. How could that person be tribalist? Fatmata Tambajang Mandinka, Jalo, Pol, and Tukulor. So how can that person be a tribalist? And you go down the line, you look at Oje Jalo. The same thing. Oje chances are they cannot speak one word in Fula other than Jamtun.
He told me. He told me that. When we met, I say, na number now, minkum pullo serakunda.
And you know, when you,
good pull.
so when you look at all that, then to me I don't see a problem.
Shouldn't be.
All that is important to me is that Barrow does the work that he is elected to do. Because if he does his work, every Mandinka, Fula, Jola, Sarahule, Jago, Karoninkan, everybody in that country will benefit. If he fails, everybody fails. When Jammeh failed the Gambia, every Jola suffered.
Yep.
Every Wolof suffered. Every Mandinka suffered. So, to me, my counsel is let's further educate our people politically to understand that the president is an employee of the voter. This is why he comes to you and tell you, elect me.
Yeah.
Not I'm going to put myself there, but elect me. So if you elect him, you are employing him. You pay his salary. He is answerable to you. That's why when he wants to run for office again, he comes back to you and say, you know what, return me there. So if you see that, then you know that you are in a position of power. But if you don't see that, it encourages the culture of sycophancy. The three things that I think are dangerous in our new democracy: sycophancy, rabble-rousing, and the agent provocateurs. Because the sycophant does not see anything but the person that is there.
Yep.
The rabble-rouser would say anything to create problem, and the agent provocateur is just here to agitate. All those three are not guided for the most part by principle or conscience. So I believe what we have to do is to build a Gambia where people will be conscious of their political rights. When we build that, this talk of tribalism and regionalism, the kind of Carolina, straight lights and all these things will be a thing of the past. We will all listen. The lights are going off today. They are going off for the Mandikas. They are going off for the Fullers. Everybody is complaining.
That's right.
So let's build a government that would be responsive to the basic needs and aspirations of the Gambian people, and we'll be good.
And what's your take on this whole tribal issue, Ida?
And I'm glad you asked, because I feel, and I got into a very heated argument with a friend of mine who I love dearly, but we got into it on Facebook because, like Coach said, I honestly believe in merit. I believe if you're there because of merit. And anybody who is in that office, the first thing I Googled or looked at is, what school did you go to? If you're capable of handling that office and so on and so forth. I could care less what you are or what your last name is. And if you ask me what I am, I joke and I say I'm Fana, but honestly, I really don't know, to be really honest. And I don't care to know. But the fact is that I want whoever is sitting there to be there because of merit. Now, the tribalism issue, I think, is there. It shouldn't be, but it's also, I find that it is not the millennials. It's not us that have this problem. I think it is the people that were before, generations ahead of us, and they're trying to instill it on us, the millennials, and it's not going to work.
What qualifies one to be a millennial?
And you were born after 1980.
Oh,
Then I'm a millennial.
No, sir. I don't think you qualify. Some of us might, but not everybody.
Sajang is way out of this.
So I think some of us are us, the millennials, are very a bit more tolerant, and we don't see tribalism as an issue. We see merit and education and patriotism, not tribalism, and it annoys me. It really does annoy me, because I feel like we should mirror Senegal a little bit based on government and so on, because if you look at it geographically, we are the same, and I don't see them have an issue of tribalism, whereas we are the same people and we have the same tribes, but that's not what they're going by. And obviously they're doing something right. So I think we should at least try to mirror them, if not anything, and put this tribalism to rest. Like Coach said, if the light goes off, it goes off for all of us. So we are all suffering at this point. So why are we bringing something? I think, like you said, it is the agent provocateur that's doing this. They're just agitating the situation because they have nothing to fight about. At this point, we're all fighting for change. Let's keep that change momentum going and work towards making it better. Now that Yaya is gone, so we have to find another evil to agitate, and that's what tribalism is. Because it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant at this point. But what we're doing is we're finding another evil or something else to focus on. But we're not focusing on what's important to all of us. We're not focusing on it at all.
That's right. Mr. An, your take?
Yeah, I mean, this issue of tribe is really gonna, if we are not careful as a country, is really gonna derail whatever our development goals are. You know, me talking here, I mean, my mom is Fuller, I'm Fuller. My sisters, half-sisters, Mandinka. I have nieces and nephews, you know, from Gomez, Jahumpa, you know, Njai. So I think to simplify it, I would just call myself a Gambian, and that's it.
That's it.
All this, I'm that, is all nonsense. You know, I mean, we have a country to build, and if we are not careful, you know, to engage in this pettiness, actually it's petty because some of these people, they kind of empty. So they use this tribal card to hide, you know, behind the tribal card to, you know, start some kind of war going somewhere. I don't think we should focus on tribe. Nepotism, like he said, is there. But all the positions should be based on merit. I cannot agree more. But I think if I'm to fail this government, I have to agree with Coach. I think they're failing to articulate what their challenges are to the Gambian people. So there's a disconnect there in terms of what the challenges are, because if you are not articulating what your challenges are to the Gambian people, you open a whole can of worms, speculations. I think it's important for them to use the mediums, articulate what the challenges are, and how they're going to address those challenges. Once they do that, I think even, you know, this backlash, even from the diaspora, they would give them a break. Because look, they've inherited 22 years of the country going down. These are challenges. You just cannot come one day and fix it. We all know that. But there's a responsibility within this government for them to come and say, look, this is what our challenges are. The high priority area is how do we make the reforms necessary for all to be inclusive. Inclusivity, is important. And I think for a government to be successful too, sometimes, even though I believe in merit, but you have to be sensitive to the other tribes too. You being the leader, you have to be sensitive. I mean, some kind of affirmative action has to be there. Okay? I mean, because if there's a semblance that you are just using a certain tribe, even though they are highly qualified, I mean, I believe in merit. But you have a country to govern. Everybody should see themselves within the governance structure. That's how you build confidence, and that's how people are going to buy into whatever programs you have. But I think the government needs to do a better job of articulating their, challenges and what the high priority areas are going to be. I think they really need to do that fast.
I just want to add something here with what regards to Mr. Ann was talking about. You see, since Barrow came, he gave us only one press conference. That was just after when he came from Senegal. But since then we haven't heard from him. And it is sometimes, I think about this. I say, do these people know the challenges they're facing? Because for right now we are hearing only from the finance ministry. They're telling us about how much there's no money, and I have seen this the other day they were celebrating that the African Development Bank has given them a grant of $5 million. They said that was timely. I said, look, that is the worst way to go, because you cannot depend entirely on gifts or loans. It's like depending entirely on the European Union to give you money, or the ADB to be giving you money, or the World Bank. What are the policies that you are instituting to increase the revenue base of the country? Because you have soldiers to pay, you have police to pay, you have teachers to pay, nurses to pay, government workers to pay. It's a lot of things that they need to do. Look at the educational system. We all have relatives in the Gambia right now. Can you get somebody write to you with a clean sentence? I haven't seen it. The education system is so. You don't. Hear anything. On that aspect. And there needs to be reform. Even if you have to shut some schools down and to bring the quality up, we need it, because we need qualified students to come up. Rather than just having a mass education of students and none of them is educated.
There are a lot of schools in Gambia. A lot of schools.
Yaya Jammeh created all that. Yaya Jammeh created all that. So it's a lot of things. You go to the health sector. The health sector, there is no medicine in the health department, and you don't hear even from the Ministry of Health. So it's a lot of things that sometimes I wonder whether they realize the enormous challenges they are facing. In the next years, to come, because this thing is going to compound. It's just like your bills at your house. If you don't pay them, they compound
with interest.
Yes. Thank you.
Capitalists are now talking.
So it is very, very important. Sometimes what I'm looking forward to is what policies are they instituting to bring the revenue up and stop this? Relying entirely on foreign aid. To get things done. It's not going to work. These European people, they're giving you money because they don't want your kids to go to their countries. They are afraid that their whiteness is going away. That's why they're giving all this money to Africa. Not because they love you, because they don't want their kids to go there. So, it's something that they need to work on. Put policies in place that is going to help, the country move forward.
Coach, I would just like your take on that, and after that, I have a question for you. Just your take on this foreign aids coming in,
is sad. You see, I just wish that the Barrow administration would learn a little thing from Thomas Sankara in terms of managing resources. I'm not talking about in terms of governance, but just in terms of managing resources. He's a guy who came to power and found a country that was almost bankrupt.
It was bankrupt.
And he was there for 3 years. By the time Thomas Sankara was gone, there was mass education in that country. there was environmental development to another level. Corruption was almost out the door, and they were not taking any loans from anybody. He rejected every loan because he instituted discipline. One thing he did was no minister would travel first class. That did not happen. Then they used to use, you write on the papers. You would have to write on both sides of the paper before you use another one. He came and said, you know what, this government is bankrupt. I'm not going to be driving a Mercedes-Benz on a $500 road. So he sold all those expensive cars and was driving a Peugeot. And he even encouraged ministers to be using bicycles, those that were fit to do that. People are looking at it, oh, it's crazy. But if you look at it, if I ride a bicycle to go to work, chances are I'm not going to use it.
And wearing locally made clothes.
Wear locally made clothes. These are things simple things that you do. And what you do is, when they see the president act like that, then you know, definitely kinak parenali. So people will try to emulate that. And when you do it, then you can cut back on all these things. I cannot understand a government like ours that will tell you 1 minute we are bankrupt. When we came here, we just find reserve for 2 months. But it travels everywhere, and the delegations are not regulated. You carry your permanent secretary, and your permanent secretary's secretary, and your secretary, and your, and you go, because first of all, you may, it's just one other person, but one other person would be an added burden on our economy. We've seen Tanzania, the Tanzanian president, what he has done.
Oh, yeah.
There was a conference that was supposed to happen. The delegation was almost 50 people. He cut it to 4 people.
Wow.
To go to that.
I agree.
Go do your work. Take the notes, come back.
Yep. Or record it.
Yep.
We can do that. Conferences that were happening, you go and organize conference, go to Kairaba Beach Hotel and have. He said, no. Every ministry has a conference room. Have it there. We don't have to pay anybody for that facility. You do that.
And we can use technology now.
Yes. You cut cost.
Absolutely.
This government must cut cost. And they have to do it the hard way. And one thing that is absolutely important, there must be asset declaration, there must be asset evaluation. Because that's the only way that you can co-op corruption. Yahya Jammeh came to power after he wrote a post-dated check that he gave to a taxi driver. And today we are calling him a billionaire. Who knew how much he had? I had access to his bank account at Trust Bank. Then it was called the Meridian Bank or whatever you call it. I had a friend who worked there. So I had the bank account. I know what he had. He had nothing. I monitored it. That was why the first article that I wrote when he became president was, where is all this money that he's giving away coming from?
It's not his.
But this government now, how much was Barrow worth when he came to power? We don't know.
No.
How much will he be worth when he leaves power? I'm not trying to say that he's dishonest, but accountability is not, you cannot just sit and say, oh, when I saw accountability, probity and transparency on the retreat they had, I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. Slogan. They have to act it. To do that, it's not, listen, we trust our wives. There's a reason, you trust yourself, but there's a reason why after the month you go through your bills and check, okay, this is how much I spent. This is because it's not that you don't trust yourself. But you want to make sure that you know what you are spending, according to your means. And I believe this government would do a great service to Gambia and Africa. If there is an asset evaluation, asset declaration, we know how much they are worth now. When they leave, they'll be celebrated for not taking a penny more than they came with, other than the salaries that they left with.
Now, something that you've always talked about, Coach, and I've heard you talked about this just even last week, is constitutional reform. It's something that you've always talked about. And with that also, what do you mean by constitutional reform? And with that constitution also, what is the state of our vice presidency issue right now? Do we have a vice president that is appointed, or do we have an interim? Like, what's your take on that whole thing?
Yes, first, constitutional reform. If you look at our constitution, it has so many bad laws in them. You look at the upper age limit, it's discriminatory to say that, you know what, one has to, you cannot be 65 if you want to run again. When they put that in the 1997 constitution, they were looking at how to stop the self divas of the world from running. People claim Dabo, it was not Dabo. Dabo was 49 then.
Some people will even say Jawara.
It was a political move.
That had nothing to do with Dabo. Dabo was 49 then. So Jammeh was not smart enough to be looking 16 years down the line.
But how come Dabo was 49 and they were calling him Olpa? that time.
Because of Jammeh was 35. So, and you are an old pa and you are not 49 yet. So you have that, and you have like Section 91 of the Constitution, which was injected there to try to serve as a safeguard, because we all know that during the First Republic, most of the UP MPs would go into Parliament and say, hey, I want a job, Jawara, I'm coming to UP. So they would cross carpet. So this was like to say, okay, let's do it so that people will not cross carpet. That is, if you were elected by NLP and you leave and join GCC, well, you will lose your seat. But Jammeh used that to control people, to fire people from his party, so that they would lose their seats. So these parliamentarians became pretty much like materials that are owned by the parties. So that must be repealed. And there are clauses in our constitution that must be entrenched. We should have the 50+1 votes. That is the second round of voting. That must be entrenched in our constitution, meaning that it cannot be changed without a referendum of Gambians. And I agree with Sol Sedikan, where he says at least 67% of the population must participate in the referendum, and you must win at least 75% of the votes for it to go. And if it is a private citizen that wants that, it should be privately funded from clean money. That way we'll have a constitution that will not be rewritten over and over again like we've had before. So, and I think the protection of fundamental human and constitutional rights must also be respected. If you look at our constitution, you have the right to freedom of assembly, Section 25. But then you have another law, a colonial law, that says that they call it, what do they call it? The something riot act crap.
Like that, yeah.
That says that if you go and protest without a permit, you will be arrested for disturbing the peace.
Yes.
And that was what was relied on to jail Dabo and this thing for 3 years. So you have these contradictions between the laws of the country and the constitution of the country. And we must have a constitution that becomes the supreme law of the land, because in any democracy, the constitution supersedes any other law. If there is a contradiction between the two, the constitution always carries the day. So this must happen. When it comes to the vice presidency, we don't have a vice president. We have a vice president somebody overseeing the office of the vice presidency. And I think this is one of the worst things that this government has done. And it comes down to communication. This is the most mishandled situation in the history of our politics.
Absolutely.
Okay? The president has the sole discretion to appoint cabinet. Nobody else. Okay? If you want to amend the constitution, you want Omar An, who is now 72, to become the vice president.
For the record, I'm not 72.
Yes.
Or Musa Jeng, okay, who is like 75. You want Musa Jeng to become the vice president. But constitutionally, Musa Jeng is not qualified based on that. But you have it because it is in the memorandum, the manifesto of the coalition, that is one area of the constitution that must be amended. But the laws is, it must be gazetted for 3 months, at least within 100 days before you have it. And this gazette thing people have been talking about is a waste of time. It's not. The reason for the gazette is for the citizens to participate in the process. This is why we need to educate our people. Because when they publish the gazette, citizens are supposed to have access to it. You go to the printing office, you buy it, you read it and say, oh, while my parliament is trying to change this law, I don't agree with it. Let me call my representative and say, you know what, vote no. That is the essence of the gazetting. And the constitution is such that it's not be easy to amend.
Yep.
That is why they said, you have the first reading and the second reading. If I were a Barrow, and I want Madam Tambajang to be the vice president, and I've said this, that she is qualified to be anything that she wants to be in that country, in terms of commitment, education, integrity, honesty, and everything. Yeah. But it saddened me that they have put her in a position where she had become the issue and not the person who is supposed to be appointing.
Yes.
Because Barrow could have easily turned to Modu Thomas and said, you know what, by the powers vested in me, I'm appointing you as vice president. But don't be surprised if I reshuffle my cabinet in 3 months after an amendment to the constitution and then appoint somebody else. Barrow can do that.
Yes, he can.
All he has to do by the stroke of the pen. I have decided today to remove Pasiring as vice president and putting Makam Sowe as vice president. He has those powers.
Yes, he does.
And I think this could have been done from day one. But they came every day, there is a new explanation from this government, and all of a sudden they acted like it's not even there. You say she's acting, you send notes and say the vice president. So this whole confusion and what it has created is unnecessary problem. And I think when it comes to that too, I also want people to also understand, because sometimes you hear these comments that are so unfortunate about it. It is okay to criticize, but you must never try to disparage somebody based on your criticism.
It should be constructive.
There is a saying in human rights that the right to swing your arm stops where my nose begins. Because if you hit my nose, you violated my rights.
Absolutely.
But I blame no one in this, but the President of the Republic of the Gambia, who has the sole power and responsibility to appoint a vice president. And I believe that he had failed miserably in dealing with this situation and put everybody in this mess that could have been taken care of a long time ago.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up this, if personally, let's say Barrow and the government is sitting there listening, what would be your message to them right now?
Well, it's just to realize that you have a lot of challenges ahead of you, and then you've given us a lot of promises, and if you don't fulfill the promises in 5 years, most likely, the voters gonna talk again, like they did 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So it is very important to understand that you are there because the people elected you. Fortunately for Barrow, he didn't use a gun. Yaya Jammeh used guns to come to power. That's why he was never comfortable over there. That's because he's always looking over his shoulders because he thought somebody's gonna use his gun against him too. But fortunately for Barrow, this is a democratic society. You have the backing of the international community. So get to work. Get to work. It's a lot of challenges ahead of you. As I said earlier, the educational system is in a mess. The hospitals, today, every well-meaning Gambian, if you are sick, you go to Senegal for medical treatment, or you go abroad. Nobody is going to. The only people that go to the Gambian hospitals today are the ones that don't have the means.
Absolutely.
So those are very important things they need to understand. Look, the employment issue. Most of our youths today are not employed.
That's right.
You have to institute policies that is going to help this youth. Look, there is no more famine in the Gambia. When I was growing up, until I went to sixth form, every summer holidays I will go back home to help my dad. Today, most people don't even farm. So and these people, they have to survive. They have to have wives and husbands and children. So we are leaving a whole half of the population in limbo without any economic prospects. That must be addressed. And one final thing I wanna say is that Barrow needs to have something in mind. He is elected by the people, and he's not like he's not a dictator. He cannot arrest somebody without due process. Like Yaya Jammeh used to do.
Right.
But we have to be. He has to be very also mindful that there are a lot of people that will take advantage of it and mismanage our economy, either through corrupt means or just pure mismanagement. And what we cannot afford with our limited resources, for some scrupulous individuals to take advantage of the situation that we are living in a democratic society, and we are learning from, because we don't know what happened in the last 22 years for you just to grab somebody and send him to mile 2 without any due process. So now you say, okay, now I'm going to fold my hands and watch. You can do that. The rule of law must be respected. Whoever is suspected of committing any economic crimes must face the full fledged of the law. What we cannot do, what we cannot afford is to people to live with impunity. Especially under Yaya Jammeh, was mostly the human rights issues. You have people killing, torturing with impunity. What we don't want also is this government for people to operate with impunity when it comes to our meager resources. That one we cannot afford. So he needs to have a strong arm to be aware that, okay, I am a Democrat, but also we have to respect. Everybody has to live within your means. You have to live within your salary. Okay, it's not just going there and taking what you don't own. If you do that, you'll be prosecuted and you'll be sent to jail.
Thank you, Makam.
Thank you.
Mr. Ann, what's your personal message to the government? As a
Well-
Gambian also.
Well, as a Gambian, I think my humble advice to the president is to govern as to the dictates of law.
Mhm.
We have a supreme law of the land, and if there should be some digression, I think he need to consult with the relevant institutions to seek advice.
Mhm.
Because governance is about, seeking advice where, you're not certain as far as to the laws. In regards to my mom, obviously, I'm not going to say anything for obvious reasons because she's my mom. Whatever the position she is in right now, I would support her all to the end. But I think when all this started, I've never uttered a word. I've read what people said. I've heard what people said on the radios. But that's what I fought for. When I was marching to Washington, D.C., to New York, organizing conferences here for the politicians, about this coalition building and all that. That's what I fought for. I didn't fight for my mom.
That's right.
I fought for democracy in its entirety.
That's right.
And there are aspects of democracy that is inconvenient. Of course, what we are facing right now as a family.
Mhm.
Okay, I mean it's inconvenient, but I've never said the way you said it. You didn't say it. That's what I fought for.
Yeah.
The beauty about all this thing is democratizing the Gambia today. That maybe a president, somebody can just say, "Barrow, what you did is wrong." You go home without being picked up. It's a plus for me.
Well said.
That's what I fought for. So be it my mom, because today is my mom, tomorrow is somebody else's
Of
mom.
course.
Yeah.
The next day is going to be somebody else's dad. But, I would just caution people that, okay, we are all Gambians. Gambia is a small country. You can make your case, you can argue based on the issue. Let the argument let it be issue oriented. But when you go personal, I mean, I think it's uncalled for. I've read things that, is kind of disappointing, but that is democracy.
Yeah.
It's not that
Yeah.
I'm complaining, but I would never go that low.
That's right.
Right.
Argue your point based on the Constitution. The Constitution is the Supreme Court of the Supreme law of the land. It's bigger than my mom. Okay, I'm not advocating for my mom to break the law, but the beauty too is Barrow is not forcing his hand. Barrow is the president.
Right.
Today he could have said, "Well, I'm the president. This is it."
And it's
But
fine,
like
yeah.
they said, he is listening, and that is good in terms of what we fought for. Because before, nobody dare say anything.
Yep.
But today you have a government, at least if they are not instituting the reforms as to the speed or the pace that we want, they are listening. And I think that is a positive step in the right direction. And in terms of the institutions, I think too, he needs to find a way to strengthen the relevant institutions because most of the institutions today, the relevance is not there. And lastly, how does he tap into the resources in the diaspora in terms of capacity building because they're going to run into problems like that. I'm not saying the talent pool in the Gambia is not there. It is there, of course, but these are Gambians too. They are educated and they have something to give back to the country.
Absolutely.
Before before Jame came, people used to come to the West, get their education 4 years, 5 years, they go back.
Work.
But now the problem now is because of the entrenched dictatorship of 22 years, people started building their lives in the West, buying houses and things like that. If you go back 20 years ago, Gambians started buying houses 20 years ago. But before that wasn't the norm. But now this government has to find a way to tap into the resources of the diaspora.
Avoid the brain drain.
To avoid the brain drain and the contributions from the diaspora, be it education, be it businesses, investments. These are things that you need for your own development agenda to succeed. And that it has proven to be a challenge with this government. They have to find a way to tap into the diaspora.
Thank you.
I'm not saying the diaspora is saying, we gave you money, so we want our seat. No, I'm not saying like that. But, realistically, these are people some of the people are highly educated. Some are successful in whatever they do, in businesses and stuff. And you need that to at least take the burden of the unemployment in terms of youths.
Right.
He did talk about the youths, the backway syndrome. How do you alleviate that? That is by being creative in businesses, make the business environment conducive where they can easily open up a business. You give incentives for them to stay in it. Some kids may need like skills training, things like that. Seminars. Just help wherever you can. But you have to tap into the diaspora for you to be successful.
Thank you, Coach.
I think my advice would go to the struggle. And I'm very serious about this. It is rather unfortunate that I see some of my colleagues, out of frustration, to ask, where were you? Why didn't you say something?
Yes.
Now, all of a sudden, you want to say something.
Absolutely.
I believe people who say that do not understand why people fight in struggles. One thing that Omar had told me a lot of times is, I am so happy that what I fought for is happening. People now at least can speak their minds. There's a reason why there was a struggle in the first place.
Yes.
If all Gambians were able to speak up and speak out during tyranny, we would not have been in exile for 22 years. But some of us were conscious enough to understand the situation. And not only that, we were also at least capable of fighting without having to suffer the burden that other people suffer. So what I want to caution people is, unless you don't know what you are fighting for, you must celebrate the fact that all of a sudden now, every Gambian has a voice. Because the reason why some of us, Omar knows, protested in 0-degree temperatures, or got arrested or did everything here, was so that every party and Demba, Bujiga Kir Ngatak, Kir Omar, Kir Usmana, Kir Patek, everybody, to be able to say, you know what, I do not agree with what my government is doing. And I can speak my mind about it. Man, when I hear that, I get satisfied because I'm like, yes, we fought for this. And that is what I expect to be that country. I want the Gambia to have a culture of protest and a culture of resistance and a culture of acceptance of divergent views where every Gambian, irrespective of your class, your educational level or anything else, can look at a government and say, you know what, Barrow, I don't like what you're doing.
Okay.
You must leave this office. Because that's what we fought for.
Yeah, what you just said about the struggle before Omar intervened. Somebody was just talking to me yesterday, telling me they should change the name from struggle to the trouble.
No, but I just wanted to add something though. I think is now that we have some semblance of democracy in the Gambia. Now, I think it is very, very important to have the doers of this world, strong civil society presence in the Gambia and outside of the Gambia. It's not like the work is done.
No.
Democracy is not a final destination. It's a process.
It's a process.
Unending process. You make achievements there, you lag somewhere, but you need somebody to be a watchdog watching you saying, well, look, the line stops right here. We need watchdogs for us to be successful as a country. That's why you need a strong civil society. It's not like the fight is over. You need the freedoms radios of this war. You need Fatu Radio. You need all the mediums. Gainako. Just bring it out there. Let people debate. But again, let me caution people too. Because I am on social media too. It's not like whatever you write on social media, you expect the minister to come and respond.
No.
Governance doesn't work like that. There is a hierarchy within the ministry. There's somebody responsible for information.
PR.
But I see people write and say, well, if the minister cannot come and say something right now, then they are complicit. Yeah. It doesn't work like that. And these are things we need to understand. That's why I said this government, you really need to use the mediums at their disposal to educate the people, sensitize them. Because if they don't do that, it's a huge opportunity they're going to miss. And once they're out of power, they cannot go back to the mediums trying to explain what they did not explain.
All right, let me get to Ida.
Just ask her something really quick before she says her last message about education for our kids. We all know that because I believe in grooming the kids at a very young age, not at the high school level.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I believe that if we don't do that, continue what we're doing right now, we're gonna fail them.
Absolutely.
So before you get to your last message, I just want you to touch on that, and then we can wrap up from there.
You're absolutely right. I feel like our kids, honestly, they're going to be here when we're not here.
Yes.
So we have to teach them and we have to include them in these things. I, for one, I know when this whole political thing was going on, my daughter and son know more about it than anybody. They had opinions and they had voices. I wasn't doing that for anything, but I was doing that for them to know what government is, what dictatorship is, what is right and what is wrong. And you're absolutely right. There are a lot of kids, and it bothers me that our families, and we were raised to where du plasi halal. You know, when grown-ups are talking, du plasi halal. Our opinions don't matter. When you're a child, you don't have a voice, technically. Today, the youths are the reason why this whole thing happened. Because we did not want to sit and watch what is happening to our beloved country. So we need to teach these kids, and even in the schools. And my mom was a principal, and I've gone to her school several times. Teaching government has nothing to do with Gambia. They don't teach them anything about the Gambian government. They teach them about colonialism and they teach them about Western government, but they don't teach them what they need to know as far as their own government goes. We need to emphasize that, and these kids need to learn what their rights are, what they can and can't do. But these kids are emulating people like, you see somebody who was a minister, the kids are like, oh, I want to do that because they have money. You don't know why they're there, or you don't know how they got there. Being a minister or being somebody in the government does not make you rich. It makes you the person who is entrusted with an office. Period. That's it. Other than that, what perks you get from it, which I hope is just your salary, is what the perks are of that office. But not the fact that I want to be a minister because of the life that he's living. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. These kids need to know what the foundations are. And also, we need to include them in discussion. They have opinions too. We need to talk to them and educate them as to, how life is supposed to be. 1, 2, what our government and their rights are.
Most definitely. Final message to the president or to the Gambians out there?
My message is, and you guys touched on it, when people say that, why are you speaking out now? We all have different reasons for what we do. What your problem is not mine. And even though I could suppress mine, today is the day I want to talk about it. We all process things differently. So everybody that has an opinion has the right to that opinion. And we all need to express that opinion. On a second note, we also need to know, and Omar would attest to this, I'm always preaching patience. We need to have patience with our government. 22 years is a very long time to put anything through. This country was damaged. This country was owned by one person. We didn't have voices. We did not have an opinion. But we need to understand that we worked for this change. And we're happy this change happened. But we also need to have patience that it is not going to happen in 100 days. It's not. You guys, everybody was grading the government. I don't believe in grading them because their challenges are different. Gambian challenges is totally different than any other country. We are very small. And so we need help and we need the resources that we have. But it's not going to happen in 100 days. We need to have patience. There's no school in this world that teaches how to be a president. There isn't. You're put in that position and you have to learn. But your learning curve is listening to people and talking to people. Yes, I have an opinion. Coach has an opinion. Omar has an opinion. But they're not all going to listen to our opinions at the same time. They have to prioritize what they listen to. Therefore, we need to be patient with them to prioritize. Hey, not today, the main issue is the electricity. Tomorrow, it will be education. We have to let them prioritize. They cannot handle everything in one day. So, to the government, they need to listen to the diaspora and they need to listen to us. But they also need to, like you said, they need to accept their challenges. Let us know what their challenges are. And then we need to have patience and let them work. They're there. We can't take them out. We can't take them out. So we have to support them. And we also have to be patient and let them do what we entrusted them to do. And if they're not successful, we go back to the ballot box and take them out. It's that simple.
Yep.
If you're not doing what you're supposed to do, we take you out. They know that because they know how Yaya Jammeh got out. So for them, they know they're sitting there, but they're not comfortable. Because guess what? We're going to have elections again, and half of them are going to be gone if they don't do what they're supposed to do. So let's be patient with them. They're learning. That's all I had.
Thomas?
All right, that will do it for this edition of the For the Gambia podcast. And we thank the lady Ida, our guests, and Coach Pasamba, Makam, and Omar Ann.
When you say Coach Pasamba, always say from the nation's capital.
From the nation's capital.
All right,
You are in our state, so there's certain
from the
things you
nation's
can't say.
capital.
There's certain things
Thank you for
you can't
joining
say.
us.